What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into the channel. Brenden Schaeffer, St. Louis Cardinals writer. We've got some news to discuss from this Wednesday morning as the Cardinals have executed a roster shakeup by optioning outfielder Jordan Walker down to Memphis. Along with him will go left-handed reliever Zack Thompson. This comes after the Cardinals' very disappointing 14-1 loss on Tuesday night at Busch Stadium to the Arizona Diamondbacks. We wondered if there might be further movement ahead after the Cardinals squandered that momentum from Monday night in just the most fantastical of ways, and I don't mean that in a polite way. It was a rough one for the Cardinals, pitching-wise, offensively, everything that you were excited about from Monday night with the Cardinals showing some grit, showing some resolve to make their way back into that game after being no hit for 4 innings against Arizona Monday. They get the home run from Goldie. They get the walk-off homer from Gorman, and people were feeling good about things. The question then was, how will the Cardinals follow this up? What will the momentum push be after a win like that? Well, that was short-lived, and the answer was that they just didn't have a push in them. Wilson Contreras hits a homer last night, but that's all they come up with on Tuesday in a 14-1 loss. Steven Matz gives up 7. We talked last night about Ollie Marmol's response to that. I thought he could have maybe handled the postgame a little bit differently. Go back on the b-schaeff Daily podcast feed on Spotify or back on this YouTube channel to check out the b-schaeff Daily from yesterday on that topic. And we mentioned Zack Thompson, too, just a struggle. And we even said in last night's podcast we would be surprised if Thompson is not optioned to Triple-A on Wednesday because you throw 66 pitches as a reliever. Cardinal starters have not been getting as deep into games recently, so it stood to reason that they were going to need a fresh arm to come back in lieu of Zack Thompson. And John King is going to be the answer to that question, as he was optioned earlier in the season, only made a couple of appearances with the Cardinals, but was sent down, and his 15 days was up as far as being eligible to rejoin the roster without an injury. That's the way it works when guys are optioned. They can come right back immediately if they're replacing an injured player, but in this case, Thompson being sent down for performance, basically, and again, threw 66 pitches last night, so he wasn't going to be available for a number of days. The Cardinals need the coverage, and they're getting John King back up here with the big club. However, I think the bigger news is Jordan Walker's demotion, as the former top prospect for the second season in a row is going to have to spend some time with Triple-A Memphis after getting off to a slow start at the big league level. Now, last year for Walker, the situation was a little bit different. His offensive numbers weren't so bad when the Cardinals optioned him to Triple-A in the early portion of 2023. He was doing okay at the plate. He wasn't hitting the fly balls and the power numbers that the Cardinals were hoping to see from him at the time. But more than anything at the time, I feel like they sort of misunderestimated, if you will, the extent to which he was going to be a work in progress defensively. They saw him a little bit in spring of 2023 in the outfield. I think they made a mistake back then, by the way, in playing him in left and right in spring training instead of just playing him in the position that we all knew he was going to play in right field, because the reps were going to be the most important thing for Jordan Walker at the time, and any time that was spent in left field that spring was honestly wasted because it was never going to be the case that he would play there much in the big leagues. So that was part of it as well. They had to get him seasoned defensively, and at the time when he wasn't producing offensively the power numbers that the Cardinals were hoping to see, it was just the answer that it needed to be to get him down to Triple-A, continue to work on his defense. And at the time they mentioned it, they wanted to see him get the ball in the air more. He was hitting too many ground balls, which was sapping the natural power that a guy who's 6'6", 250 pounds should be able to deliver. So he went down. This time, though, the numbers they're rough. He's hitting 155 with a 239 on base and a 259 slugging percentage. Jordan Walker will go to Memphis now, still seeking his first home run of the 2024 season. He had a triple and 4 doubles to his credit in 9 hits, over 58 at-bats, 67 plate appearances. But you're slugging under 300. You're slugging under 275. That's just not the Jordan Walker that the Cardinals are going to need if they're going to be the team that they want to be. We've continued to talk about this offense. It's been the main topic of the season, although pitching struggles are going to perhaps join that on narrative street if struggles like Tuesday nights continue for this club. But with the way the offense has been scuffling, you have some of your mainstays like Nolan Gorman, Paul Goldschmidt, and Nolan Arenado performing below expectations in various degrees so far this season. For Arenado, he's got the batting average right now, but we're going to continue to harp on the power, because as much as it's nice to have a 290 batting average, when you're Nolan Arenado, you have to hit for power. It's the way this club was designed. He's got to be an engine in that department, and only 1 home run so far this season is something that's worth mentioning as to why the Cardinals are struggling at this point. Granted, we've seen slow starts from him before. We've seen it from Goldschmidt before, and those guys tend to heat up as the weather does. So perhaps that's something you'll get with balls flying out a little bit better in the heat of summer at Busch Stadium. Maybe both those guys can supply some power. We've seen power from Nolan Gorman, the 4 home runs that he's hit, maybe a little bit off the pace of what you'd want to see. But if you parse that out, it's still probably around 24, 25 home runs in a big league campaign, which is probably not his maximum capacity, but it's good enough. The in-between times, though, on Gorman, when he's not hitting mistakes every so often for homers, the strikeouts have mounted, the overall OPS, and those numbers are a concern. The Cardinals need Nolan Gorman as well to go if this offense is going to go. But Jordan Walker is an example of a guy that when we looked at the offense in the offseason and we thought about why could it be that the St. Louis Cardinals might actually be able to take a step forward at the plate collectively compared to what last year's, let's be honest, mediocre numbers offensively had produced, Jordan Walker, I think, was slated to be a big part of that. At age 20/21 in 2023, Jordan Walker put together a 787 OPS. That's pretty good. You know, he more than held his own. Like I said, I know that he was sent down for a portion of that season, and you know, you might have feelings about what that was at the time. I personally wasn't too big of a fan of it because I thought Cardinals should have known. Cardinals should have known what Jordan Walker was defensively, and if they weren't going to stick with him through some of those struggles last year, they shouldn't have called him up to begin the season. But I think they got caught up in it being a nice idea, and then when reality began to set in, and it was the case last year that players around him weren't performing too, so that does play a role in the pressure that a young player might face, fairly or unfairly. I do think that ends up being part of the equation. The Cardinals made the decision that they made last year. But now you look at his numbers this year. A 497 OPS, a 155 batting average, no home runs, as we mentioned, and the strikeouts mounting a little bit on him as well. 18 Ks in 58 at-bats. He's got 6 walks. That ratio is not getting the job done. So the Cardinals decided to make a move because I feel like getting Jordan Walker in the daily lineup wherever he's going to play is going to be the best way to get him going. And at this point, with the scuffling that he's been doing, and it's again with the ground ball rate is elevated, he's not producing the power numbers that you would like to see from him. When he gets the ball in the air, it does seem like he kind of gets under it a little bit and doesn't get the maximum barrel on that baseball. So a trip to Triple-A might be what he needs to, be able to play every day, because when you look over the last couple of weeks in St. Louis, Ollie Marmol, and I understand the challenge of this was trying to find ways to simultaneously keep him fresh in hopes that they could get him going, but also they're trying to win baseball games, and he wasn't really contributing offensively to that goal. And you had guys like Ivan Herrera that were playing better offensively. You had other players like Alec Burleson where, the numbers weren't really there for Alec Burleson either, but you're seeing, I think, better at-bats from Burleson with the hard contact and the way that he's putting the ball in play. And that's only going to get you so far. Burleson's going to end up having to have a better OPS and better numbers too. But I think the Cardinals are looking at the quality of the at-bats by those two guys right now, and they're saying, look, Burleson's probably going to be a better bet for the short term, and Walker's probably got the higher upside for the long term. And they're not extracting the upside from Jordan Walker right now if they're letting him continue to scuffle in the big leagues. I view it very similarly to how I viewed the Victor Scott situation a number of days ago, where the guy's obviously struggling. And in Vic's case, I think you can say, look, offensively, he wasn't ready to compete at the big league level to the extent that even Walker would be right now when he's going at his best, because there is a little bit of proof of concept for Walker. We saw it last year. A 787 OPS is nothing to sneeze at from a guy who compiled those numbers between age 20 and age 21 at the big league level. There's a proof of concept. There's a track record there. It's not a lengthy one. So you can't look at Walker now and say, well, you can fall back on that track record and know that he's about to turn the corner any minute now. The at-bats that he was taking, I don't think were indicating that. And that's the same that you could have said about Victor Scott. So what did they begin to do? They started to give those guys days off from the lineup because they're trying to win at the big league level. It's hard to do both. It's hard to win and develop guys at the major league level. And I think when you're watching the quality of the at-bats, just letting guys play through it, there's something to be said for that, and allowing guys to struggle and find out how at the big league level to work through some of those issues. But if you extend it for a period of time and you're not seeing the progress, and then it just looks like a guy's getting flattened like a pancake out there by major league pitching that for whatever reason, mentally, physically, metaphysically, whatever it is at the time, that player is not ready to conjure the bounce back from within his own self, a time in Memphis might be the way to hopefully reset and find a way to get that back. They did it with Victor. They're now going to do it with Jordan Walker. And I think what that will mean for the daily lineup is more Alec Burleson and more opportunities for getting Ivan Herrera in there, who, by the way, like we like to give credit to guys like Herrera, who started off really strongly at the plate. His numbers have dipped a little bit. I think he's in about an 0 for 8, 0 for 10, something like that. So it's not necessarily been that he is just operating on all cylinders. And we talk about Alec Burleson last night. He did not start, but he came in off the bench, got a hit, drew a walk. So was doing things that were productive for this offense. Where I think the Cardinals and Ollie Marmol look at it and say, look, if Burleson's going to take these types of at bats, yeah, his OPS is only 590, but if we're trying to get more out of him, it's going to have to be by playing time. We're going to have to get him in the lineup. He comes off the bench rather, and takes some good ABs. Maybe the way to get another bat in the lineup that can be productive is by sort of feeding that minimal playing time that he's been getting and turning it into something more, allowing Burleson to have an opportunity. I'm not saying it's going to go well for Alec Burleson because he was a below average hitter in the major leagues last year. He's been a below average hitter according to OPS plus in the major leagues this year. But like I said, the quality of the at bats, and I think just the quality of Jordan Walker's future. If he's not playing every day because you're trying to squeeze these other guys into the lineup, he's not going to as quickly come out of the struggles that he's having. So I think that goes into the decision-making process for the Cardinals. I'm sure Ollie Marmol's speaking at Busch Stadium now. I'm not there this afternoon, but I'm sure we're going to get some more insight as to what the Cardinals are feeling and thinking about this decision. But I think in looking at things after what happened last night, the status quo was not going to be good enough. The Cardinals can't sit on their hands right now and just say, hey, we trust the quality of the players that we have in here. We trust their track records, and they're going to come out of it as a team. I think it's incumbent upon the Cardinals front office to actively do things to try and make it work. Now, if it feels like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, and if it feels like they're ruining Jordan Walker's development by doing what they're doing right now, that's going to be an opinion that some people have out there, and feel free to comment that below if you have thoughts as a Cardinals fan on this move, whether you think it's a good one, whether you think it's a mistake, it's a knee-jerk reaction, it's a press of the panic button. All of those things may be true, but there also may be some merit to it, because how long can you allow a young player at 21 years old to continue to struggle at the big league level? That's one part of it, but if you're not willing to commit the daily spot to him in the lineup, you can't platoon him. You can't have a 21-year-old player only playing part of the time, especially when he's got the pedigree as a prospect that Jordan Walker comes with. Needs to be a superstar in the future for this organization. And the Cardinals are pressing the panic button a little bit, sure, but they're also trying, striving, doing everything possible to salvage that situation. Now, let me be clear about something. I don't think this is over for Jordan Walker. I'm not worried long-term about Jordan Walker being able to figure it out. I believe he can be a great player at the big league level. But right now, they're not seeing that. And for a Cardinals team that's struggling in the standings, is struggling throughout their lineup, I think this is just one of the moves that they have to try something. They have to try to make something happen. And they're going to recall Jose Fermin in a corresponding move to Jordan Walker going down to Memphis. Fermin has been raking. This is a guy that's deserving of an opportunity. And look, I don't think it's crazy to maybe just find some daily spots in the lineup for him as well. I understand that he's just kind of the guy. It's less about Fermin getting called up and more about Walker going down. That's kind of the headline today. Walker goes down. He's the guy compared to Fermin that you expect to have the significant future with the Cardinals. So I wouldn't be surprised maybe to give some opportunity to Fermin in the lineup, but it's really less about him and more about they need to get Walker somewhere where he's going to play every day, can reset a little bit, can take a little bit of the pressure off, and hopefully find that sweet swing that he's so capable of having. He flew through the minor league system as a young player. Cardinals drafting him out of high school. Guys come up to the big leagues and struggle sometimes, right? But this is a situation where they're going to have to eventually get the most out of Jordan Walker, and this may be the way to do it. I'm looking at the lineup here now for Wednesday afternoon. It's a day game for the Cardinals. It's Donovan in left. Contreras is the DH. Arenado, Goldschmidt, Herrera will catch. Newt Barr is going to be in right field. I think you might see a fair bit of that with Donovan and Burleson sort of splitting the duties in left field. Mason Wynn, Nolan Gorman, and Michael Ciani still in center field with Kyle Gibson on the mound. Cardinals fans, let me know what you think about the moves today. I had to jump on here and do a quick reaction video to the news that Jordan Walker being optioned to Memphis. If you guys listen to b-schaeff Daily, you heard me say it last Thursday night, I want to say that it was, or it might have been on a podcast with one of the other podcasts that I did last week, where I said I wouldn't be surprised even to show up to Busch Stadium on Friday night and see Jordan Walker potentially optioned, see that transaction. I forgot that Jordan Walker, he had his bobblehead day on Friday night. So that wasn't going to happen. And they gave him the weekend, still struggled, gave him a couple of days this week, still not looking great. And they weren't putting him in the lineup every day anyway, which is the point at which I think you have to go ahead and accept where the current status quo is for a player and say, this doesn't have to be an indictment long term, but the Cardinals need more from him. And they're maybe not going to get it if they don't make this move to send him to Triple-A Memphis. So let me know, Cardinals fans, in the comments below what you think of this decision. It's disappointing for sure, but I think the Cardinals are in a spot where they felt they could not afford to wait any longer because they don't want to get too far down the road with Jordan Walker and then be later asking what if. What if we would have done something sooner to try and get him straightened out. So that's the news. Walker down, Zack Thompson down, which we knew was probably going to be the case. We said it last night on b-schaeff Daily, which is pretty rare. I usually don't say this is going to happen unless I have a reason to believe it in terms of behind the scenes. But in last night's case, when you throw 66 pitches, it's a matter of just needing to get another guy up. So that's what they do. John King comes up, Jose Fermin comes up, and the Cardinals will take on the Diamondbacks Wednesday afternoon at Busch Stadium. Let me know once again, Cardinals fans, in the comments. Make sure you hit like on this video, and in the lower right-hand corner of this video, you can subscribe to the channel, Brenden Schaeffer, St. Louis Cardinals writer, for all of the Cardinals content that I will put out throughout the season. We've been doing daily videos, daily audio, daily podcasts on the channel. You can also subscribe or follow b-schaeff Daily on Spotify, where you can get an ad-free version of the podcast if you join the paid subscription program. So thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.